Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to see this many people sitting here and interested in the ins and outs of the short film selection for film festivals. We have with us today 3 wonderful guests from 3 different countries and from 3 different festivals. We have Gregory Coutaut from the Cannes Critics Week, so Semaine de la Critique for short film selection, and he's a programmer there. And in 2022, he was actually the artistic advisor to the Paolo Moretti Directors Fortnight for the short film section at the Cannes Film Festival. So, round of applause, please, for our great guest here. Then we have Laurence Boyce, who is based in Tallinn and originally from the UK. He's the head of the major short film selection at the Tallinn Black Nights Film Festival. He's also the chairman of the short film committee and an advisor to the Leeds International Film Festival. So I would like a round of applause. Thank you. And last but not least, we have Éva Demeter, who went from film festival assistant to film festival director of the cross-disciplinary Alexandre Trauner Art Film Festival in Szolnok, Hungary. And she's actually been the film festival director since 2020 and has been involved in projects like Cinema for Youth, Resonance Cinema, and organizes multiple workshops and meetings and connecting students and industry professionals. So, round of applause for Éva, please. Thank you very much. So, I would like to start this off with a question to Gregory. I would like you to tell us what's your job actually at the Semaine de la Critique, and what's your role as a programmer, and what do you actually do, and what does your selection look for?
Hi everyone. What do I do except staying home and watching films on my computer? Maybe not much, but that's 99% of my job. We receive 2,400 films each year, and we make a selection of only 12. So I would say my job consists of trying to make sense of this mission impossible and try to get away as best as I can. I would like to thank you for asking what I'm looking for in a selection and not what I'm looking for in a film, because that's kind of it's the usual question we usually have. What are we looking for in a film? And I think it's a much better angle, but we'll go through that, I think, through our discussion to say what we're looking for in a selection. When you select only 12 films to try to represent everything around the world, you try to be as eclectic as possible, and it's tough.
Well, thank you very much. I just have a question. So, in the selection, I'm curious, when you look for films or when you go through them, when you cycle them, because you see you have around 2,400 films every year. From our conversation outside, I heard there's 5 of you.
Yes.
So, in this selection. So, I'm curious, when do you look for selections? Do you have meetings with higher-ups who say, okay, this is going to be the trend of this year, this is going to be the topic that we're looking for, or does this come originally from the selections, from the multiple films coming in? Do all of these films sort of have one goal or one political angle, so you adjust to it, or do you curate the films to fit this lens or political angle?
No, we start our job with no preconceived idea, no preconceived notion. There is not one single country, except for France perhaps, whose presence is mandatory in the selection, for example. Our only goal is to be as eclectic as possible, and in terms of genres, of styles, of languages, of origin, geographics, we try to have the same number of female directors and men directors. And of course, everything is dictated by the films we receive. Sometimes we are very surprised. Last year we received a huge number of Chinese films, and this year much less. It's all about Argentina. Surprisingly, I was under the impression that Argentina and of course cinema was in a very important state of struggle. And it turns out we received a lot of Argentinian short films this year. So let's see if it's translated in our very small selection. We have to, I would say we have to keep our mind the most open possible. Of course, I'm rushing through an open door, but I think the best quality of a festival programmer is both to have a knowledge of what to expect from short film production all around the world, each market, each continent, each one has specificity, but also to keep the mind the most open possible.
Thank you very much. Laurence, I have a question for you. I'm curious because it seems that we somehow have this hierarchy here from you being the head of the major short film selection at Tallinn Black Nights, and then we have a festival director with us here. So I'm curious, what would be, for example, the difference between Gregory's work and your work when selecting films here?
Now, before we go on, I'm going to do something. So bear with me, and there is a point to this, and I will then answer the question. I'm going to do a thought experiment with all the people in the audience. Okay, I know you're here to work as well. That's a surprise. I'm going to ask you to do something. Just keep it in the back of your minds whilst we're all talking, and there is a point to this, I promise. What I want you to do is, I all think that, imagine you're all invited to a party. And at the party is going to be some friends and some guests, and there are going to be kids, there's going to be some music playing, there's going to be a bit of dance, there's some food or whatever. And you have to choose, all of you, 10 songs. Personally, 10 songs that mean something to you. Okay? So for this party, again, party, guests, kids, people you know, they're all going to be there, and you have 10 songs. So whilst you are definitely here to listen to our words of wisdom, in the back of your minds, just think about maybe what those 10 songs will be. Okay? I promise you there's a point to this. Okay? So start thinking, and I will now answer the question. A bit closer, and I thought I was loud enough in general. So I'm the head of program for live action, and it's for Buff Shorts, which Buff Shorts is the short film element of Black Nights. We have a number of competitions, a live action competition, and we have an animation competition, so we have a separate head of animation. And we also have lots of side programs which are mixed. Now, with my job as head of program for live action, it's always very hard to say how does it compare to other people's jobs, because I think we all have various similar experiences, but how we all work internally can all be very different. Is that I sort of oversee everything. We look at the films that we receive. We get about 5,500 films every year, show about 275 or something like that. And it's my job to oversee the competitions and the non-competition programs from the live action side of it. And it's sort of my job to make sure that everything is together and ready when the deadlines are told. And within that, I work with and assign interns and programmers to work on the various programs. And yeah, we then come together and we discuss. That is basically the job. It's very simple. At the very, very simple kernel of it is we get a bunch of films, we sit there and we discuss them, and we make programs. We give the programs to the audience.
And do you have, for example, some kind of rating system, or does your vote count more than the other person's vote, or how does that actually work with your selection team?
I think it's a bit difficult for filmmakers because in some ways I think filmmakers want us to say, well, what we do is we have a rating system, and there is 1 to 10, and we all look at the ones, and all the ones that are 10, those are the ones that are in, and then there's and this one had a thing on this, and there's a diagram. These are all objectively the best films. And it's just not true. It's, you sit together and you discuss. You start looking at a program, and as Gregory alluded to, there's no thing that we come in with, like, we are going to do this year. What we are informed by is what is submitted. We look at what people are talking about, and you just start to go, okay, I'm talking to this person, and then, okay, somebody says this, and maybe this is a good film, and maybe that will go. And it's a very natural an organic process. And we all come together, and we all talk, and we just start building programs. And there's no sort of magic formula. It is a sort of gut, okay, we thought this was interesting, we thought this was interesting, and you listen to each other. I like to think, I'm the head of program for live action, and I like to think I'm good at what I do. But I also am a 47-year-old white male with certain views of the world. It's important to have other people and other voices, and we all feed in, and we start to build a program. And there's no sort of, well, this is the formula that we do. It's just, you end up sort of putting everything together and going, we think that works.
All right, and then we go from the head of the live action short film program, we go up to a festival director. And so I'm curious here, especially for you and your festival, and of course you have your own programmers, you have your own heads of the programmers for your film festival. What's your role here in the selection process of short films as a film festival director?
Okay, this works great. So, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It's so nice to see so many talented students and actually a community as well. I really enjoy being here with my fellow colleagues. I'm afraid I also won't be able to tell you a recipe that works for us either. I could just mention the approaches that my colleagues said. For many years I was involved in the work of the pre-jury, so I was also watching the films because as a festival director I always wanted to be involved in the work of the festival from the beginning to the end. So for example, if I have to tell something about the films to the press, how would I know what I'm saying if I haven't seen any of the films? So what we do, or what I do, is that I also try to keep track of the films that we are receiving, but of course, as a festival director, I have many other works to do, so it's not easy, but I try to involve people from different backgrounds. For example, a person from the press, a person who is a film critic, also university students that we work with. I really like young people, and I really do rely on their opinion, because I think that as they are, for example, our audience, they know the best what kind of films they would like to see. So I try to involve some young people into the selection committee. And yeah, that's it basically. At the end, we hope that we have a nice and interesting selection of films.
Well, thank you for these answers. Now, I'm curious for another thing, because I sort of keep hearing the same thing throughout you, the three of you, well, multiple things. But one of the things that interests me is you mentioning, for example, that, well, I'm a 40-year-old white Western European. How will I know about, let's say, a film from Colombia? How will I know the topics there? Well, I'm curious, for example, for you, Gregory, you say there's 5 of you selecting 2,400 films. And so let's say you get a film from Colombia or from a country that you don't really know about, or is not really connected to any of the 5 of you, because you're quite limited. How would you vent this film? How would you understand, okay, is the politics or the societal elements shown in this film, are they appropriate to the country where they're coming from? Are they truthful? How do you vent this? Because you have, for example, directors such as Glauber Horschek, who wrote in his essay, The Aesthetics of Hunger, for example, criticizing Western Europe for exoticizing hunger, exoticizing suffering of post-colonial countries. So how do the 5 of you, or how any of you sort of vent these films that are coming in and selecting them? How do you do that?
Yes, we cannot pretend we have the same legitimacy as people from these territories, of course, in terms of judging what is 100% genuine or not, but we have to work with humility. I think that's another very, very important quality to have as a festival programmer. You have to be sure yourself, of course, but you have to have a lot of humility to know that your point of view is merely one point of view, And yes, we are a team of 5 for selecting short films at the Critics Week, but it's true that we're all white, we're all from Paris, even though we have different tastes, and that's how the committee was composed. But it's very true what you said. For example, we received a lot of films from the African continent, and we try as much as possible to show films that are not in the, what would I say? Some films gave us the impression that it was exactly the type of African films that white European Western audience would like to see, are already familiar with, and keep on selecting in festivals, and we try to deviate from that. Again, humility, because we can only do with our own point of view. You cannot do away with your own point of view, so you have to try and be self-reflective and analyze it. And so it's, I can pretend we have definitive answer, but that's part of our day-to-day work, of course.
I think it's also, there is an understanding of trying to find that ebb and flow with us as tastemakers, for want of a better word. And also, just before I go on, I hope everybody's still thinking about their 10 songs. Yes, please, thank you. There's finding the balance between knowing that, especially when we work for bigger festivals, we can also, you know, create certain tastes and things like that within our audience and our cinema. Now, we have this thing that we're working towards our audience. You know, I work for a festival where people will pay money to go and see films, and I want to have the audience to see new stuff. And how much am I doing as a tastemaker, and how much am I doing, you know, to reinforce the stuff that they want to see? How do we find that balance? You know, knowing that, you know, years ago, the Romanian New Wave, you know, there were lots and lots of Romanian shorts, and the same kind of short was programmed for many, many, many festivals. And then there were some Romanian filmmakers sort of going, I can't get out of that now, unless my film is set in a kitchen. There was a kitchen in Romania that many filmmakers made a film in. Unless my film is set in that kitchen, I'm not going to get selected, because that's not what Romanian film is now. And so it's how do we find that balance between, again, keeping on certain tastes and reflecting what people are making, but also sometimes wanting to show new and diverse things. There isn't an answer, as Gregory said. There's no sort of definitive answer. There is being aware of it, and hopefully having that as part of our discussions and what we do, and always being acutely aware of why we're putting stuff together.
I think as a curator or festival director or whoever working for a film festival has the obligation to visit other film festivals, other film forums, or a visit like this to a film school where we, of course, try to keep track of the latest trends and what's going on in the world, what is the opinion of police students, what is their topic in their films. It's really interesting to see. So I think we all try to keep track of what's going on recently in the world in terms of films. Of course, we cannot go everywhere. If I would go everywhere, probably my husband would give me my suitcase and then put it on the street. But we try our best, and I have recently seen a Hungarian portrait documentary about a photographer, and he's 86, and he said in the film that he lived in the period of the time whenever he was taking a picture, that picture showed the reality. And now his profession changed so much, and I want to reflect on what you were asking or mentioning, is that I think it's a really hard thing to decide nowadays, or at least this is what I see on my kids, that if something is appearing in the social media, like the last time my 10-year-old was really believing that they are saving a giraffe from the edge of a cliff with a huge excavator, and she was like really believing that this is real. So it's hard to decide in 2026 what we are seeing in a video or in a picture, whether if it's real or not. But it's our job, at least, to talk about it, to show it to the audience, and also if we cannot show everything, which we cannot, of course, then it's our task to organize a side program of the festival, to have a conversation what is going on, because we cannot show everything, because then the festivals would last 30 days, and that would be too much of motion picture seeing at one time.
Yeah, of course, I understand what you're saying, and it's interesting seeing that all of you sort of agree on the same thing, that you cannot vet really in 100% if this is truly truthful or not. Of course, there's some truths in the world, but at the end of the day, there's very few of them, and the rest depends who you ask. There's another thing I also saw through line through all of your answers during the introduction, and the first question is, well, selections, as you said, because there's a lot of arguments, especially between me and my colleagues in this university, when someone gets accepted to a festival and the other one doesn't, and the other one says, well, my film was made better. What do you mean? Like, my film was, the craft was better, the actor was better, the directing or cinematography was better, and yet she made a film about a political topic and went to a film festival. And so how do you sort of address, and how do you find this line between craft and politics? Like, as someone who selects films, what does your process look like when you see a film? Do you think about the craft? Do you think about the politics more? Like, tell us what's your thought process when you're selecting these films?
Okay, vast question. I would like to say, it's not directly an answer, but precisely to what you said, but to part of your question, the same film would not doesn't have the same exact chances to be selected in the same festival each year, because we don't select, especially for small selections, for like the Critics Week, we have so little room that sometimes a film, one of the criteria you use to select a film is also how it compares to others. That's very important. We try to find balance. So sometimes a film, when we hesitate between two good films, one that represents something that is not already present in our selection, it's going to be the decisive factor. And it's not necessarily a pure quality of the film, it's not artistic quality, but it's something extra, something that the film, a box that the film ticks. So it's true that it happens. It might sound cynical, but it's something you have to deal with when you're making a film selection. It's not always just about art. It's also that we have to make a selection that reflects the world the way we see it, reflects the world the way the directors see it, what we think the directors are saying, we're trying to reflect it. And yes, sometimes it's hard to say goodbye to films that don't tick certain boxes. It's a balance. Of course, we don't want to make an only political selection, but we don't want to make an apolitical selection. There is no strict guideline. It's always very fluid. Each film, there's a part of randomness, and I think it's kind of sad to admit, it's kind of, but there is a part of randomness in the fact that a film gets selected or not. I'm not saying that we're not doing our job. We're very good at doing our job and selecting films. But there is sometimes an element of uncertainty, and yes, that a film is going to walking past another one. I don't know if I'm making myself very clear. Do you want to react?
But I totally agree. I think one thing that has to be understood is that for a lot of, because as we've alluded to, we don't walk into the selection process going, we're going to do this, we're going to look at this topic, this is what we're going to follow. You know, and we're lucky because, you know, we show 275 films, we have a lot more room to breathe. You know, you only get to choose 12, and we show 275. But it's completely contextual. If we get 5,500 films every year, we'd look at those films. What are people saying this year? And it is completely about, okay, and you start looking at what people are saying and you start building programs. And then There are some films that are political. There's a program that could be political. Could be a program and they could all be set on farms. There could be lots of different reasons about why we think this works. Because the trouble is that my job is to say no. Because, as alluded to, we had 5,500 film. If I showed every single one of us, it'd be a bloody long festival. We have to say no to stuff. You know, and within that, we say no to a lot of films we like. And it's, you know, some of the filmmakers have already had it with me already, which is like, I'll go to them and I'll say, yeah, it was a good film, I really liked it. I can't tell you a damn thing if it's going to get into the festival, because the point is that until we see everything and how everything works together and how people are talking about stuff, then we don't see how it all works. And there is an idea that, you know, you might build a program and you're doing, okay, this, and somebody might say, this is a heavily political program. Okay, that's great, we're doing that. Or somebody might say, but these films are all about a dark subject. Maybe we put a comedy at the end, and you might go, okay, well, I like that one, but that one is going out. And the difficulty is that that is nothing to do with the base quality. You know, one of the things, the title of this discussion, you know, what a programmer is looking for, you know, a good film. Thank you very much, everybody, good night. That's, you know, that's what we could say. Just make a good film. That's it. We're off now. But the point is, there's lots of discussions that go on that are nothing to do, at least with the inherent quality of the film. We have more films that I think could deserve to be in competition than we can put into competition. So we start looking at lots of things to do with what are they about, even country of origin, even all this kind of stuff. And that becomes part of a discussion. And all that discussion is how those films are relative to the other films. And that's why it's also so difficult to say things, because that is also different every year. Because films are different. So that there is no, and again, it's also difficult to explain to filmmakers, because that's the bit you have no control of about anything. All your control is to make a good film. The rest of it, we're looking at what everybody else is doing and how it all fits together.
Yeah, for me, I'm not only running a film festival, but we do have an art house cinema, which is operating 365 days a year, so we are open each day, and it's a private company, so we are not belonging to the municipality. And when it comes to the running of the cinema, what kind of films we are showing, we are trying to show films that are not political at all. At least if there is a Hungarian film on one political party or another, we don't let in any of the films, because we want to like really step out of this angle and just leave space for culture and leave the space for the audience to decide what they think of the film afterwards. But if it has a political nature, then we don't show the film at all. If the multiplex shows the film, then we advise the audience to go there. When it comes to the film festival, we are supported by the Hungarian Film Fund, and I have never ever got any kind of sign for them what kind of film to show and what kind of film not to show. So this is good, because we are on our own with the selection, but as the cinema functions like this, I also try to leave politics out of the selection, which is not easy, of course, if there is a topic. But yeah, this is a question that there is no definite answer for that, so.
Well, I'm curious, how do you leave out politics out of a film? How do you find this sort of, when you get this influx of films, and I imagine a lot of them are made with some political leaning, or if a creator makes it with a political leaning, how do you vet what's not political and what is political in your film festival?
I don't know, I was recently a pre-jury for a Hungarian film festival, and we were giving points to the films, like from 1 to 10, and there were 3 jury members, and then I just realized that I gave 10 to films that the other jury members were giving like 1, and then they were giving 10 to other films that I was giving 1. So it's really hard to tell. I really don't know the answer. So, for example, we were showing films. I told some of the students coming from Ukraine in my film festival. So I guess I cannot really leave out politics as much as I want. So it's hard, but I think it's a huge responsibility for all the film festivals what films we are showing, because we somehow also dictate the trends. So if you see 30 films on a certain subject, you might think that this is the trend for this year. And if I don't show any other films, then they are not in the trends or what. So it's really hard. What we can do is to rely on our instincts, to ask different people in the film industry and to provide the best variety in the selection as much as we can.
I think it's also the difficulty in, what is a political film? Just in case, you have a comedy from Palestine, just because that is a comedy and it might not deal directly with the issues that are happening, but its very essence of its being, it's still there. All films are inherently political in some ways or the other. There are just some that are more direct in dealing with direct issues of war, of conflict, of gender identity, of all those kind of things that have become the important topics of our lives over the past 10 years or so. It's so, and there is difficulty that, everybody makes films because they believe in them. And if I just showed films about issues, for want of a better word, and it's a horrible word to use, by the way, issues, but if you know what I mean, I would still have hundreds and hundreds of films. There will be people telling me, oh, but this film is about an important subject about homelessness this is about an important subject. All these films are important. In some ways, all films can be important. And with that, then you just have to go, no, so we have to go from the gut instinct about what we think works. And quickly, is everybody still thinking about the songs? I'm really sorry, but I actually made a mistake. It's not 10 songs. It's 5. Okay? So you need to get rid of 5 songs. Sorry about that. Totally my mistake. 5 songs. I might even ask a couple of people to tell me about their selection. So 5 songs. Sorry about that.
Well, I'd like to segue before I start getting into the questions from the audience. I'd like to have one last question for all 3 of you, which is, I think, a very important thing we should discuss, and a critique that I keep hearing, or sort of very violent critique against A-list film festivals, which is that, oh, they don't watch my film that I send. It's all, if I don't have somebody that I know as a programmer or a contact, I won't get selected. Does anybody watch these films? They probably just skip through them and they don't watch them. How do you, for example, you especially as a part of a 5-man crew for 2,400 films, how do you take this critique and people saying, oh, you don't watch all of them, or you just skip through them? How would you answer these people that would yell this at you?
It's wrong, but it's a very legitimate error to make, because it seems impossible. But if you submit your film to us, it will be watched, of course, at the very least by 1 member of the committee, but most of the time at least by 2, and if you're lucky, by all of us. I forgot the rest of the question, sorry. Oh no, and I don't think it's also a myth, in my opinion, to think that you need to know someone from the festival or to have a visit card from someone prestigious. You have a famous producer, you have a famous international sales agent or something. It will help your film be noticed quicker, be watched quicker by the committee perhaps, but it will not enhance your chance of being selected. In my opinion, in my experience, but each festival works differently. Of course, Cannes, we're a bit spoiled because most people want to go there, of course, so we are lucky to receive a lot of films. I would say the difference between my festival and your festival is also the fact that we have no real audience. I mean, we are not, I don't know if you know that, but the Cannes Film Festival is not open to general audience. It's only for professionals. with a couple of exceptions. So, and the venue that screened the film from the Critics Week is not the largest. I know I have a former colleague from the Critics Week here in the room with me. He knows that. It's not the largest venue. So when we screen short films, not a lot of people are going to watch them on the very first try. So that's also something that we need to take into consideration, and especially when because I didn't talk about the politic aspects, but that's also something we need to take into consideration, that our films are not going to get an immediate reaction from an audience, but that's another completely different topic.
I mean, yeah, we do. That's all I can say. I mean, I will say, and I know people don't believe me, and it frustrates me as well, is that Vimeo analytics are really, really unreliable. Because we've had people before, they obsess over Vimeo analytics, and they go, have you had it, I know Film Festival Reddit, but a few people on here do the film festivals on Reddit, and people are going, have you had this view, and there's a view from here, and there's somebody watched it. But it can be really unreliable, because I have people telling me, oh, you didn't watch my film. It doesn't say that. And it's like, I tell them about their film, and it's like, I've seen it. And I know it sounds like a get-out clause, and it's not. We do watch the films. There's nothing I can do to prove it, apart from go through, if I've seen it personally, go through the plot. But there's nothing I can say or do. We have 5,500 people, 5,500 films. With that, there's a lot of people I have to say no to. And with that amount of people I say no to every year, there's always a couple of people who don't like me. There's quite a few people who don't like me in general, but it's nothing to do with work. But the point is that, and there's not a lot of convincing to people. There's a thing that we do, and it sounds like semantics, but we send out a not selected letter, not a rejected letter. It sounds again like total semantics, but rejected says that your film was terrible, and it's not selected. Once again, 5,500 films, we can't show them all. We have to say no, and people. It is difficult because people want to know why we said no, but I also can't get back to everybody and tell them why, because of the complexities of actually how everything goes together. But often a film isn't in the festival just because it didn't fit this time. Not about its inherent quality, not about what it was about, but we have to find ways and means of putting stuff together. And that's it.
We used to receive also 3,000 films, but then I noticed, since we have a special call, and this is why I was giving you the answer, that we don't really have to think of politics, because we have fine art competitions, science, short films, animation, and in the feature film section we focus on production design. So I don't really get films of the nature of politics that much into these categories, but I just realized over the years that even though we were receiving lots of submissions, I was receiving Indian gay zombie films for the fine arts section. So we had to introduce a small entry fee, and this really led to the fact that we are receiving less films, but at least they are fitting the categories. And I had a call last year from a person who was submitting his film, and he was thanking us that we watched his film, because he was submitting the film in a way on Vimeo or something that you couldn't forward it and you couldn't go back to the beginning. So it really had to, you really had to see it. But anyway, we also see the films. And we try to follow our own rules, that, for example, the entry deadline is the end of June, and some friends also were calling us, oh, can I still submit my film at the end of August? And I'm saying no, so I'm sorry. So we are trying to be as polite as possible and to be, of course, open. If a film is one day after the deadline, it's fine. But if it's 2 months, then I have nothing to do.
And I also wanted to quickly add that when I watch a film, and it's most of the team as well, I'm a human being, I know people, I know directors, I know certain people, and I know certain films, but at the end of the day, most of the films we watch, I watch the film first. Don't read the synopsis, don't look at the director, don't look at anything. My first experience of most films is the film, the object in itself. The rest of it comes later.
Well, thank you very much for answering my questions. I think we'll turn right now to the audience and see if anyone from the audience has any questions for our guests here. Just raise your hand and you'll get the mic. Right here to the left side. Yeah. just need a microphone so the translator can translate. Yeah. He's here on the left.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Bo, and this is Fo. We're screenwriters. We came here with our script, 6,000 pages. Do you think you can produce it?
No, because we look at the final product.
We're not producers at all. We only work with films once they're done.
When it's done. Who could help us done it?
There will be plenty of people you can talk to, I'm sure, many of the things, but we look at the final product.
Okay.
And also, at 6,000 pages, I'm not sure if it's going to be a short film.
Yeah, it's very slow genre.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have a question from the audience?
Thank you. Thank you.
Right there, I see. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sebastian. I'm producer. And I have one question. What we should do with our 5 songs?
Okay, I'll quickly go into this now. You all thought of 5 songs, yes? Or you all thought of something? I'll tell you the reason why I've just done that to you all, okay? Because to try and understand the idea of what we were talking about, what do film programmers want? What kind of film do they want? Why did I ask you, first of all, why did I say there's a party with kids and thing and you need to choose 10 songs? The reason I asked you to do that is because you're thinking about something and I give you an audience. There's a bunch of people who are going to be there and there's going to be kids and you're going to know them. So you might think, oh, well, Slipknot, people equal shit, maybe not that suitable, maybe I shouldn't. Or you might think, I know those kids. So they'll be fine with it. So that's an example of you knowing your audience. That's you putting together a bunch of things that mean something to you, and you know your audience, you've put these songs together. And then halfway, I told you, I'm sorry, it's not 10 songs, it's 5. And then all of a sudden you had to get rid of 5 songs. Okay? Those had to be thrown out. Now, first of all, does that make those 5 songs you got rid of rubbish now? Does that mean they're terrible songs? And then how did you think about why you got rid of those 5 songs and kept the other 5 songs? Maybe it's because you just have a list, this is my top 10 songs ever, this is 1 to 5, this is 6 to 10. Or maybe you would have thought, well, in my original top 10, I had 3 ABBA songs. Well, maybe I don't want 3 ABBA songs, so I'm going to get rid of this ABBA song as good as it is because I want this to be reflective. What I try to do on a very, very small scale is make you think of a process, which was you were thinking of certain things, you were thinking about reasons why to put something together, and then I made you have to get rid of something. And again, those things you got rid of, it doesn't automatically mean that those things are now bad. It just meant I changed the parameters and you had to think of a different way of doing it. And that's sometimes in a small way like we do. I know it's a very, it's not one-to-one, first of all, nobody paid, the songs to, be submitted to you to listen to. But it's that thing that you thought about, okay, there's an audience, there's a bunch of people here. You were doing programming in a way. And I do think that for a lot of what we're going to, I'm trying not to take up too much time, but I'll be as quick as I can, is the idea that we're talking about a lot, and he's going to be talking about a lot over the next, few days. It's about career and future paths and feature films and all that kind of stuff, and we all believe in that, and we all believe in the industry. But I think we all do what we do because we like short film. I like the medium of short film, and I feel like as well that I do what I do because I enjoy showing short films to people and going, hey, come, don't you think these are cool as well? It's that as much as we do have certain amounts of power and are tastemakers, I think, in some small way, we also do genuinely care about what we do and showing a medium that we generally care about. Now, I'm not going to ask anybody to tell about their 5 songs, and if you're annoyed about that, well, congratulations, you're also a programmer, because you want everybody else to know and share your passion and enthusiasm. But so if that thought experiment worked for you, great. If it didn't, I'm sorry. Maybe you can just go home and listen to some good songs.
Hello, my name is Anna, and I have a question to all of you. To what extent, although Eva briefly mentioned it, but I would love to hear all of your points of view and maybe more extended. So to what extent do you follow current trends, so political and artistic, and select based on relevancy, or you also see and recognize that you are in a position to set the trend and recognize films that are perhaps ahead of their time and catch the momentum and set a new trend? Thank you.
Well, before coming here, I was telling my team that I have the fear that my film festival will soon be not interesting, because there are so many film festivals, not just in Hungary, around Europe. There is so much noise everywhere, and I also noticed the trend, at least in Hungary, that the films that are made are circulating between the film festivals. So, as a festival director, I want to have films that are premieres, that are unique, that are shown to the audience for the first time, that are interesting, that raise issues, all kinds of issues. But I already told you we are mostly focusing on fine art and other topics that I mentioned. Of course, exception is the short film section, because we also have live action short films too, which have nothing to do, of course, with the fine art or the scientific nature. So it's not easy at all, because, for example, before our festival, there is another important Hungarian film festival just 4 weeks before. So, to be honest, they are sometimes grabbing the film that I want from me. And I was thinking maybe I should place my film festival before this film festival, but then the colleagues of that film festival would hate me, because then I would be the one stealing the films from them. And since we have in the audience university students from 9 universities, nobody would come to my film festival during the summer, because of course it's a summer time for everyone. So it's always difficult what kind of films we are showing. So, for example, for us, we are mostly focusing on, at least for the feature films, which are peculiar in terms of production design, on Europe. Because if I would open up the selection for the whole world, how would I choose only 10 films? It's not easy at all. And of course, to answer your question, we are following on trends like, for example, I try to spot interesting exhibitions, interesting departments, interesting people from interesting universities, and ask and talk and network and go to different places where I talk to other people, and then, you know, to catch even just one sentence and remembering one artist who is doing something creative or unique, and bring this to our film festival, because this is something, and I think I was talking to some of the audience in the breaks, that what will be the future of the cinema and the future of the film festivals is not that we should grow the festival and receive 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people, but I want them to, I mean the audience, to feel well at the film festival, at our festival, to feel as part of the community, to bring something with them at home, and to remember some of the films, some of the topics, some of the events. So this is how we choose the relevant issues, or at least this is my dream, what I'm thinking of how we organize the events. Sorry, it took a bit long.
And I also think that is also the thing about short film, is that in some ways what we do is quite, and again, I've said this to some people already, you know, a friend of mine from Tampere Film Festival, Jukka Becker. If you don't know Tampere Film Festival, find out very soon, because it's great. He said what we do is quite violent sometimes, because we take short films and we force them to speak to each other. We force them into a program and they have to have a dialectic with each other. You know, you don't go and see a short film and experience it, and then leave. You sort of have to see everything working together. But within that, the beauty of short film, and hopefully if we have skills as programmers within that way, is how we put stuff together and how we can sometimes do things that confirm audience expectations and sometimes subvert audience expectations as well. If you're an audience, you know, well, they're not huge on experimental film. Whatever experimental film is, that's a completely different subject, such a nebulous term. But you might say, well, this film is quite what I would call experimental, but I think I'm going to put that one in there. Because I know that they can, you know, they can see one that they might know about already, and then they can see this one, and if they don't go for it 100%, maybe I will have converted a few people, and you can play with that. And again, it's about what you can also do about certain films, whether they're, you know, political and things like that, how you put these films together. And also, there is sometimes we do have these discussions about what are we doing for the industry and what are we doing, you know, for the filmmakers and how is all that working. But it's also like, I have an audience. There are also people who are going to pay money to come and see those films. So also with what I'm doing is how am I working with them and hopefully inspiring them, maybe changing some ideas about maybe stuff they don't like, but also finding that balance between confirming and subverting, you know what I mean? And at least I do think short film very much allows you more of that space.
Does anybody else have any questions from the audience? I see a hand right there.
Hi everyone, I'm Abigail, and I wanted to ask you about the watching process. Like, do you guys watch it 7 days a week, like 8 hours per day? Or is it like, because you mentioned that it's 5 people for the Cannes Festival, and how it works like with other festivals?
I think the difficulty is, you know, it's always really difficult to talk on how other festivals work. You know, I watch lots of films all the time. I might watch films 8 hours a day, I might watch films 10 hours a day. I might sometimes not have a day of watching films because I'm out playing with my kids. Then I've got all my, you know, we just know we have a deadline and we will get through that. That's how we do it. And there is also the thing is that we try our best, okay? I would love to go to a cinema and watch every single film on the big screen in a, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It's not going to happen. Sorry, but it's not. We're human beings, you know what I mean? And it's like, I could have a bad day. I could have, I've got a massive headache, but I'm getting through all this kind of stuff. But I also know that if I watch a couple of things and I'm not feeling my best, I'll watch them again. I sometimes have a mental upscaling. You know, I'll watch stuff on a computer screen, but I'll think about how it's going to work with the audience. But the point is that you just get through it. And at least from our point of view, there's often not an allotted time, just get it done by the deadline. And that's what we do. I watch lots of films all the time. Somebody said to me, oh, you're up 9:30 watching films. That's very early, isn't it? And it's like, no, welcome to my life.
Yeah, it very much depends on the festival and the volume. I remember when I worked for the other section of the Cannes Film Festival, I had 2 months to watch 2,000 films. So it was a full-time job. And it was paid as a full-time job. What I'm doing right now is not a full-time job, except for the very last weeks of the month of March, meaning right now, where it's a big rush, and which leads me to one advice I could give you to when you want to submit a film to a festival is to submit early. Because you may hear often festival programmers say, oh, we decide everything at the last minute. So you might think, oh, my film has more chances if I submit at the last minute, which is plain wrong. Please submit early. It doesn't increase your chance more than it increases your chance of being watched and debated with patience and time and openness.
I mean, and also, though, to quickly say, if for whatever reason you do have to do a film later, close to the deadline, it also, at the end of the day, doesn't really make a difference. It will still, at the end of the day, everything will be watched and judged as fairly as possible. It's just that thing when people say, oh, well, maybe when I submit it, it will have an effect on if the film is broken. No, it won't. It won't. Just, if the ultimate thing we all go, just make a good film, and then we see what else happens. That's whether it's the first film submitted, the last film submitted, or in the middle. It will get watched and it will get judged in a nice way.
Last time it was the COVID time when I had a full day time watching films because our cinema was closed, so I could focus on watching films. But of course, when, for example, we are invited to be a jury member on one of the film festivals, it's the nicest thing to really just focus on the films, go into the cinema in the morning, and then we could, I could watch 4 or 5 feature films a day. When it comes to short films, of course, it's easier because of they are short, then you could watch even more films in a certain amount of time. But I have to disappoint you, since that we have a cinema, I don't really get to see all the films, unfortunately, in the evening, especially because I have a family. But yeah, if we focus on film watching, then it's even a relaxing task after all the administrative things that we are doing, because, for example, our cinema has international projects, so life just doesn't stop after watching the films.
I also think sometimes, people ask, like, how do you do it? And it's like, because I can. There are some people who are really good at maths. Some people who can just do sums in their head. I can't do that. There are some people who can dance. I can't do that. Trust me, I cannot dance. And I just can sit and watch lots and lots of films back to back, and I can remember them, and I know about them, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know why it is, but it is just me and my programmers and everybody I work with. There are some people who do have a natural affinity for being able to watch lots and lots and lots of films in a row and still remember them and still try and judge them fairly on their equal merits. And there are some people who can't, but hopefully the people who can are the people who find jobs as programmers.
Well, we have come to the end of our program. I'd like to thank everybody here for coming and supporting us, and I'd like you all to give a round of applause for our wonderful guests. Thank you very much for coming. And if you have any other further questions, you can ask them on the way out. I bet they'll be glad to talk with you and answer your questions, whatever you have. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Dziękuję bardzo.